So Forbes has actually officially been hit. It's actually been mentioned a few times by a couple different websites. Like, for example, Barry Schwartz has mentioned it, and quite a few people have also mentioned it on Twitter. So let's take a look and see why they've been hit and what you can also do to prevent your website actually getting a manual action, because that's what people are claiming what Forbes has had, which is a manual action. And that's basically when Google evaluates your website and they see that your website is breaking some of the Google policies or some of the Google rules. I've actually got a blog article that we'll basically be going back and forth with, but the link for that blog article will be down below. So if you guys do want a link to this, so it's a blog article on actually how to recover SEO traffic, and we'll see what they've actually done based off of my writings to actually get this manual action. So if we take a look at the news, obviously we've got Barry Schwartz. Did Google hit Forbes advisor with a search penalty over site reputation abuse? There is a load of people talking about it on Reddit. Funny enough, Google actually use Forbes as a case study. So if you actually search Forbes on Forbes Google, you'll see that the fourth or fifth result is actually a case study here, talking about how great they are providing really good content. So that's quite funny to see. But anyway, if we take a look here, as you can see, over a 2-year period, September 2024, they were ranking for 23 million keywords, and now they have went to 19 million keywords. And if we take a look at just the Forbes advisor, because what some people are saying is that it's just the Forbes advisor that's had a manual action, and that's what's took the hit. But again, if we take a look here, you'll see that they were ranking for 340,000 keywords, and now they are only ranking for 292. It does look like it's a lot of the pages. It's not just one section of Forbes, so it might be a manual action across the entire website. But if we actually take a look and see, so this was released by Google March 05, 2024, and basically it's their way of tackling spammy, low-quality content on search. And just as a gist, if you guys haven't been watching this or reading this, should I say, what Google have basically turned around and said is that if you are a big website, which Forbes is, it is very easy to bully out other websites. Like, for example, Forbes is a DR94. I've spoke at multiple conferences, and one of the most common questions that I did get asked at conferences is, hey Kaz, I have a small website and there is a big website, not necessarily, might always be Forbes, but it might be other bigger websites that are very high in DR. I'm scared to go after a keyword that they are already ranking for. What should I do? And typically the answer that I would always give is, some of the bigger guys, they're just throwing out content. They're not always, they don't always have the best content. And that was very much the case with Forbes. Forbes was very much throwing out content because they knew they could bully out smaller websites because of the amount of domain authority that they had. So now that we know that, if you do have any other small websites that you're going up against some bigger websites, like for example Forbes or CNET and stuff like that, the best piece of advice that I can give you guys is that make certain that your content is way better than the actual monster website you're going up against. So that's tip number one. Tip number two is make certain that you actually have topical authority. In a lot of cases, if you actually looked at Forbes, they just had what I would like to call one-pagers. So they would have they would have pages going after best HVAC companies, and they wouldn't have that much information on their website about HVAC. So for example, if you're going up against Forbes in that sense, or if you're going up against the bigger websites in that sense, it's definitely worth focusing on topical authority. One other thing that a lot of these bigger websites they don't do as well is they don't go back into their content and re-optimize it. That's from my understanding anyway. Some of the bigger websites might do, but there was a lot of pages on Forbes that I was tracking, and they just weren't keeping them up to date. So after like 4 or 5 months, you would look at the content and you would say, well, that's the exact same content that was uploaded 5-6 months ago. So in that case, over time, those pages that they do throw up does become a bad user experience. So that's one thing that we also want to talk about. So scaled content, that's exactly what or one methodology that Forbes was doing. They were just mass uploading a lot of scaled content. Site reputation abuse, that's what I was saying before. So for example, if you've got like a high DR, it's very, very easy to bully out other websites that are smaller. So take that piece of advice as you may. If you do have a bigger website, feel free to replicate what Forbes done. If that's what you're into. I wouldn't recommend it because obviously Forbes did end up getting slapped. And then they've also mentioned expired domain abuse. To my knowledge, Forbes wasn't using any expired domains. They were just using their monster DR, their big backlink profile to go after weaker SERPs and actually earn more money from it, which it did work out for them for quite a long period of time. I'm not going to lie and say that it didn't work. It definitely did work. They did make a lot of money. They did also take a lot of money from small website owners, which is horrible to see. But at least they did end up getting hit. Now, I did mention at the start of this video, like, how can we actually avoid something like this? Like, let's say, for example, if we want to create, maybe not like a DR91 website, but let's say we're trying to aim for like a DR50 or a DR60. How can we stay in our own lane, make certain that our website is actually providing a good user experience, and that we don't actually get a manual action, right? So a lot of the things that Forbes actually done, like I'm almost certain that if they were to read this article, they would actually be able to actually recover their website and get the manual action revoked. Now, the reason for that is because, like, if we actually take a look at some of the things that I'm mentioning here, we're obviously talking about, like, checking to see which areas of the website's been hit. Like what I mentioned before, some people are speculating that it's only the /advisors section. So first of all, what we want to make certain of is finding out which part of the website actually took the hit. Is it the entire website, or is it only maybe a couple silos, or is it maybe 10, 20 pages? In this case, I feel like it's a few pages. It's not just going to be 5 or 10 pages. It's probably going to be a couple hundred pages that have been hit. But this is basically going through everything. So if you've potentially lost traffic on your website, read this article, because I've actually written it to try and help other SEOs out. But understanding where the actual core update, or where the actual manual action in this case, has actually impacted your website. What you want to do as well is you can also use Screaming Frog and Google Analytics, Google Search Console. This is like a pro tip. I've actually shown you how you can plug in your website into Screaming Frog and do a audit on pages that have actually lowered in clicks and traffic. We've also went over why websites get hit in core updates. Now, I do understand that this is a manual action, slightly a little bit different, but what they've probably been hit because of is topical dilution. Now, topical dilution is when you start trying to rank your pages for as many different search volume keywords. Now, what I mean by that is it's very easy to start trying to rank your website for as many keywords. Like, for example, I was speaking to a law firm that recently got impacted, and this is a law firm that actually provides the service, and they actually had pages to do with, like, how much do lawyers earn. Now, from a topical authority point of view, you might think that's actually good to actually have on a law firm website, but it's actually not. That's more so to do with like a job seeking website. So again, that's kind of topical dilution, very, very just. I don't want to go too into detail, but making certain that you've not diluted your website where Google just doesn't understand what the core fundamentals of your website is, that's super important. Lacking domain authority, Forbes didn't have that issue. They had tons of domain authority. They've got tons of EAT. I'm going to assume that they don't actually have toxic backlinks. I'm going to assume that they're probably doing disavows day in, day out, or well, maybe not day in, day out, but on a regular basis. The next thing that they would want to do as well is finding winners after the core update. Now, again, they've not been hit by a core update, they've been hit by a manual action, but seeing which pages have actually dropped and then seeing which pages have actually taken your spots and seeing what they're doing differently. That's if they don't want to delete a load of pages, which we will get into in just a second. We also want to identify winners and losers. And then if we could just scroll down to the bottom, because this is going to be the most important thing for their actual website. So if we just keep scrolling, this is probably where they're going to want to spend most of their time, pruning low value content. So what I mean by that is, obviously, we all know that they have uploaded a lot of scaled content, if you may. And what we want to basically do is go through this entire diagram, asking ourselves or evaluating the content. Is the content outdated and irrelevant to what I was seeing even like a year ago? They did have a lot of low value content. Could a lot of that content be re-optimized and actually considered semantically relevant to the website? Yeah, definitely. It's going to take a lot of time to actually re-optimize that content and get Google to recrawl that content, but it can definitely be done. In other cases, what they might want to consider doing is potentially actually 301 in that content if that content actually has got any decent backlinks, or potentially 410 in it. But this diagram, it'll tell you exactly when to keep a certain piece of article and when you should consider actually doing what's called content pruning. Now, if I actually had to put a bet on this, I'm going to assume that they're probably going to actually remove a load of pages and also re-optimize some pages. I think that they probably know what they were doing, so they're probably gonna remove some of, like, for example, there was directory pages on Forbes. I'm going to assume that they're going to remove some of the directory pages, and some of the pages that earned them more money, they're probably going to actually re-optimize and then actually try to get out of the actual manual action. But this has been a video on how I would be recovering Forbes. I feel like that this very much does apply to their website, like website reputation or scaled content abuse. They were definitely doing that. Site reputation abuse, they were definitely doing that. So I think if they could just go back into what they were good at, and that was basically being a actual news style website, they won't actually have any issues. So it's completely down to them. It's going to be interesting to see how they recover from this manual action. It's going to be one of the websites that I'm actually going to be keeping a close eye on, because I like to track things. So if I do see them do any funky tactics, I will be adding it to this actual blog article. If you guys do want access to this blog article, it's going to be the first link in the description. Maybe you guys have actually been impacted by core updates. Maybe you've lost some traffic. Take a read of this. I've had some really positive feedback from it, and it's also based off of data that has helped me recover other websites when like I'm doing consulting and stuff like that. So it's not just random knowledge. It's actually things that I actually take a look at when it comes to doing consultancy calls for recovering websites. But anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. any questions, feel free to ask them down below. And what do you guys think to the actual Forbes clapping? Do you guys think they deserved it? I feel like a lot of people will say yes, but it'll be interesting to get your guys' thoughts on it. So thanks for watching.